These space buttons are probably gonna disintegrate before the end of the video, but we going with it. Hello everyone, I'm Michaela Kathleen, and I'm here today with a kind of random, very specific, niche topic for a video. And that is, are you a book completist? I was thinking about this topic like a few weeks ago or months. What is time anymore here in coronavirus? So a few weeks or a few months ago, and I don't know, I was just thinking about it for a long time, and I thought maybe I should do a whole video on this. And then my brain was like, but this is so random and weird and specific. And so then I remembered that there was this book habits tag, and I thought this question for sure has got to be on the book habits tag because it's a kind of a book habit. Like, do you have to own all of the books by an author or in a series, or don't you? But alas, that question was not on the book habits tag. So then I was like, well, do I just do the tag and add the question? Or I wasn't sure what to do, and I was like, you know what? No, I like this topic. I want to discuss it. I'm gonna do a whole video for it. So yeah, hopefully it's something that you all are also interested in, since I'm about to talk about it for a long time. But yeah, so onto the topic at hand. The question is, are you a book completist? And for this, I've kind of come up with like 4 tiers, if you will, of book completistness. That's a word. So tier number 1 is you have to own all of the books by an author you like. You feel compelled, if you like an author, to own all of their books, regardless of if you like all of their books or not. So that's tier 1. So obviously that also includes owning all of complete series, etc. So then tier 2 is you have to own all of the books in a series and all of the spin-offs in a series. So for example, if you own Divergent, you have to own all 3 books as well as that random book about 4. Or if you own Twilight, you have to own Twilight and all of the books that are gender swapping and about random characters who were in the series for a whole page and a half, and all of those. So yeah, that's tier 2. And then tier 3 is you feel compelled to own all the books in the series, but not spin-offs necessarily, unless they look really interesting or good. And then there is just the complete, not a book completist. That's me. In which, if you only like the first book in a series, you're fine with only owning the first book in a series. And if you don't own books, this can also just apply to just reading them in general. Like, you know, you can be a completist in that you have to read a whole series, even if you don't own books. Even if you kind of stop liking it halfway through, you just have to know how it ends. Or you start reading a series and the second book kind of is blah, and you think, I'm not gonna finish the series. I'm gonna start checking other things out from the library. So yeah, please comment down below which tier level of book completist you are. Do you have to own all the books by an author? Just own all the books in a series with the spin-offs? Or are you just like me and a total monster? Which brings us to the second part of the conversation that I would like to have down below in the comments. How do you feel about your book completist tendencies? Do you feel guilty? I myself feel a little bit guilty. I'm a Hufflepuff. I pride myself on being a Hufflepuff, and therefore I pride myself on my loyalty, and I feel very bad about some authors not owning more books by them, or getting rid of a series if I've decided I only like the first book in the series, or what have you. I have much guilt about this, but there's only so much space on the shelves, and sometimes, even though I do feel sentimental about my books and getting rid of them and not owning complete sets, I'm just not a book completist, despite my Hufflepuff tendencies. And then, so the flip side, if you are a completist, do you feel guilty about a giant series that you have sitting on your shelf, taking up a lot of space, even though you only like the first maybe 1 or 2 books in the series? I'm very, very curious to know what everyone else's tendencies are on this topic, so please comment down below. And now for the rest of the video, I'm gonna go through my shelves and talk about the places where I am a completist and the places where I'm not a completist and how I feel about that. So this might be a long one. Hopefully it's not too boring. Hopefully it's a topic that is interesting. I don't know. But jumping right in, my first shelf is my John Green or Green Brothers, or at this point Green Family shelf, because I do own Sarah, John Green's wife's book, You Are an Artist, which is not on the shelf right now because I am very slowly working my way through it, doing all the art projects. Oh, and I also even own Esther Earle's book, who was a fan of John and kind of partially inspired The Fault in Our Stars. And I do encourage you to go out and buy this one if you can. Proceeds go to the charity this star won't go out. But yeah, obviously I'm a Hank Green completist. He only has 2 books and they're part of a series, and I liked the first book and I liked the second book, so I have them all. But with John, I am not a completist. In a way I am. I own all of the books that John has written by himself, and I have no plans to get rid of any of them. Turtles All the Way Down isn't my favorite, but I have no intentions of getting rid of it. That being said, I did at one point own Let It Snow, which he wrote with Lauren Miracle and Maureen Johnson, and I also at one point owned Will Grayson, Will Grayson. But I got rid of both of them because I didn't really like them very much. And I have not even read any of the anthologies that he's been a part of, which are kind of short stories with like 20 or more authors on them. Not huge on short stories, so I haven't given any anthologies much of a chance. I think I've only ever read one. But yeah, I prefer John working alone, I guess, and so I'm a completist on his books that he's written on his own, but I don't own anything that he has co-authored. Next we have my Scott Westerfeld shelf, which I am also not a completist on Scott Westerfeld, even though he's probably my 3rd favorite author. I am a completist on the Ugly series. I own all 3 of the originals, the extras that we got, and the new series that is currently being released, which I plan to finish. So for the foreseeable future, I will be an Uglies completist. But yeah, Scott Westerfeld, what happened with him? I would like to own much more books by him, but the first thing I read of his after Uglies was the Midnighters trilogy, and I got that one from the library, and so I liked it, but not enough to like have read it and then go buy it. And then after that, I no longer had the fervor to go out and find more Scott Westerfeld books. And so I went many years with only the Uglies on my shelves. But then Afterworlds was announced, and the concept sounded so interesting. I would have gotten it even if it weren't Scott Westerfeld, but it being Scott Westerfeld certainly didn't hurt. And then it was really good, so that kind of brought the fervor for Scott Westerfeld back a little bit, and I got the Zeros series, which came out after Afterworlds. And yeah, of late I've been wanting to find more Scott Westerfeld. I've always been interested in the Leviathan series, but at the same time I still wasn't feeling the urge to go out and buy these enough to like actually go out and do it. Like, there are some books that you're like excited for and you go out and you buy them, you seek them out, and other books that you're like, oh, I would like to read this one day, but I'm just gonna kind of let it come to me. And that did finally happen a while back with Leviathan. I went to a used bookstore, sold some books, and looked around to see what I could use that new book money on, and there was Leviathan, and I finally got it. But it is at the bottom of my TBR, so it's still gonna be a while before I read it. So yeah, Scott Westerfeld has a lot of books, and I don't think I'll ever be a Scott Westerfeld completist, but I do wish I owned more by him. Moving on to my next shelf. Oh, this is gonna be a long video. This is sort of a contemporary YA by female authors shelf, and featured prominently is Rainbow Rowell, which again, I am not a Rainbow Rowell completist. I feel bad about it. I have all of her standalone books. I have Fangirl, Eleanor and Park, Landline, and Attachments. But I have not read the Simon Snow series, which is sort of a spin-off of Fangirl, which I do feel kind of bad about because Fangirl is like one of my favorite books, but I've just never been really interested in the Simon Snow series for some reason. It's not that I would not read them. It's, again, just that I'm not seeking them out. I'm not real interested. If it happens someday, it happens. But honestly, if it doesn't, I'm okay with that, other than the feeling of guilt. And I think the main reason is the magic system in those books drive me up the wall. This is a kind of a funny story, but also I don't want to make Rainbow like sound bad or anything. Like, it's fine. But so I went to this event for the Simon Snow series, and someone in the audience asked her how to create magic systems for their book. And she was very kind, very nice, gave a very nice answer that I didn't agree with, in which she basically said, don't get caught up on the magic system. Don't let that stop you from writing the story. The story is what matters. The magic system doesn't really matter. And then she went into this whole story about how she spent so long trying to come up with the magic system for Simon Snow, and then eventually was just like, why am I making this so hard? And then just didn't worried about the story, didn't try very hard on the magic system. And my thought was, I can tell, which is mean, but true. I care a lot about magic systems. I like there to have been a lot of thought put into magic systems. I like complicated magic systems. So the fact that Simon Snow is a very simple, not super thought out magic system has kind of just always turned me off to the series. And so yeah, that is the story of why I have not read the Simon Snow books. And yeah, like, asterisks, it all just depends on the reader. Some readers are like me and want complicated magic systems, and other readers don't like complicated magic systems, and simple ones, like in the Simon Snow series, are perfect for them, and that's what they like, and that's good and that's fine. So this isn't like a bad on Rainbow Rowell. It's not a magic system that works for me. And then, of course, Rainbow Rowell also does a lot of comics for Marvel. If you didn't know that and you like Rainbow Rowell and you like comics, go check them out. I don't really care much for comics, so I haven't read any of those, nor do I plan to. But moving on for Rainbow Rowell, we have Jennifer Niven, which I have not read any of her adult books, but I got Holding Up the Universe, her second YA novel, from the First in Line Club, and I immediately went out and bought All the Right Places, which was her first YA novel, and I love them both a lot. And she has another YA novel coming out later this year, I believe in November, that I'm also planning to buy probably right away. So Jennifer Niven, not a completist because I haven't read any of her adult novels, but I am and plan to continue being a completist for her YA novels, and I might try her adult novels someday. I don't know, we'll see. Also on the shelf is The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, which I am not even a series completist on this. I thought I was for many years. So there were 4 books originally in this series, and then years later she came out with a 5th book, and I just didn't even know about it. So I do have that on my wish list because I would like to complete the series. That being said, I got another book of hers years later from the First in Line Club that I did not enjoy at all, really. I think it was called All of It Together, maybe? Something like that. And yeah, I did not enjoy it. So I think for ambushers, I'm always just going to be a Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants girl, and that's probably all. And then on the shelf, I just have a bunch of random books by different authors for whom I own none of their other books. Very much not a completist. I did briefly own If I Stay and the sequel Where She Went, but I did not like Where She Went, so I got rid of it. That one I did not really feel guilty about. I don't think If I Stay should have had a sequel. But moving down here, I don't know if it's really in frame, I have just sort of a random YA shelf in which I continue to show my not a completist tendencies. I have Wonder on here, and none of the spin-off books, sequels. I think it just has spin-off books, not sequels. Regardless, I'm not interested. And then I did briefly have all of David Arnold's books. I believe he only has 2 books out so far. I got his first book, I believe it was his debut, Kids of Appetite from the First in Line Club, and I loved it. Sorry, it was his second book that he had written. I loved it, so I went back and got his debut novel, Mosquitoland, and I hated it, so I got rid of it. I would be willing to give him another chance, but not necessarily gonna go seek it out. So, moving on to my dystopian shelf. First, we have The Last Book in the Universe by Rodman Philbrick, which is one of my favorite books of all time. It is a childhood favorite that I've had forever. It's one of my oldest books on my shelf, and way back when, I did try to read more Rodman Philbrick books. I think I read 2 other books, and I really disliked both of them, and that's when I gave up on Rodman Philbrick and was like, you know what? I'm happy with just The Last Book in the Universe. And below that, I have the 1000th Floor series, for which I do own the whole series. Surprise, surprise. And I actually am interested in trying out more Katharine McGee. She has this American Royals series that sounds super fun, super interesting, and I would like to get around to that one someday. And beyond those 2 series, I don't know if she's written anything else or not. That's another thing. I don't necessarily keep track of all of the books that an author comes out with. I do better nowadays because I get a lot of book news emails that I'm signed up for. But yeah, then I have the Hunger Games series, which I do have the whole series, including the prequel, which the prequel I was kind of lukewarm about, but I do plan to keep it and remain a completist on the Hunger Games series. But I don't have any other books by Suzanne Collins. I'm interested in the Undersiders trilogy, I think that's what it's called, that she has. But again, I haven't prioritized it, so if it happens to fall in my lap one day, I will gladly read it, but I have not sought it out. Then I have the Divergent series, for which I am not, well, I'm a completist on the original series, but not the spin-offs. So I have the original trilogy, but I don't have the book that was focused on 4. And if there are any other ones that I may or may not know about, I don't have those either. And honestly, I'm thinking about maybe the next time I reread it, I might get rid of the 2nd and the 3rd book and just keep the 1st book, because I didn't really love the 2nd and the 3rd book. They were kind of boring and they didn't wrap up the way I hoped they would. And then I have Matched, which I'm not a completist even on the series. I only have the 1st book. Kind of like Divergent, I didn't really like the 2nd and the 3rd book. They were kind of boring. And even the 1st book is just kind of borderline, but it is a keepsake, so I am planning to keep the 1st book. Then I have The Handmaid's Tale, which I do plan to get the sequel that came out many years later, probably early next year. But as far as reading more Margaret Atwood beyond The Handmaid's Tale, meh, I'm not super pressed. Hello. So I realized I managed to completely forget an entire shelf, and so now here we are, days later. Hence the outfit change. Oh, Harry, where are you going? I thought you wanted to be in the video. Don't play on that. Sorry about that. So hence the complete outfit change, and the angle change, and all of that. Yeah, I totally skipped this shelf by accident, and oh, no, stop it, no. Harry baby really wants to lay on my coat. Harry has massively distracted me from this video. So yeah, Harry, what are you doing? He's being a little monster. Harry's decided you don't get to see this shelf. This shelf that I skipped, that I'm now filming days later to put it into the video. This is turning into a hot mess. But the shelf that I skipped is my fantasy shelf by female authors. And so on this shelf, I have Shannon Hale, who wrote one of my favorite books of all time, The Princess Academy. And years later, I found out that it was a series. I did not know. I think the sequel came out years later. And I read the sequel, and it was such a huge disappointment that not only did I not finish the series, in my mind, I choose to believe that Princess Academy is a standalone book. But then I got to the 1st book in the Books of Bayern series, because even though Princess Academy was such a big disappointment, I still love Shannon Hale for the 1st book and wanted to try more of her books. And I'm currently reading the Books of Bayern, and I only had the 1st book, and I was going to decide whether or not I wanted to finish the series, which was a really hard decision, but I did decide to order the 2nd book and we'll see how that one goes and whether or not I continue the series beyond that one. And then also on this shelf I have the entire Inkheart trilogy, so have the complete set there. But the next time I reread it, I might decide to get rid of the second and the third one because I think I really only enjoy the first one. And then I also have the entire Land of Elyon series, including the fourth book that kind of got added on later, and then the prequel. But again, the next time I reread the series, or whenever the shelf fills up, I think I'll probably get rid of the fourth one. Harry, you're being so sweet now. I'll probably get rid of the fourth one and the prequel, because I didn't really care for those two. And so yeah, that was this shelf that I accidentally skipped. Back to the regular video. So then moving up to my tall shelf, we have the Harry Potter shelf, which J.K. Rowling is the only author in which I am a completist, but I may change that at some point. I just loved the Harry Potter series so much as a kid. It's the books that got me into reading, and so a lot of that as a kid I credited to J.K. Rowling as being the author who got me into reading, and there was a lot of loyalty there. The Hufflepuff tendencies on this one were strong. So when the Harry Potter series ended, I was just waiting for more, and so when the Casual Vacancy app came out, I got that one, and I didn't mind that one. There's a lot going on, which was kind of a criticism that it got. It tried to hit a lot of topics, but I didn't mind that. It made it interesting. There was a lot going on, a lot to be intrigued by. And then she started coming out with her Cormoran Strike mystery series, which I've always said J.K. Rowling was made to write mystery. You can see it even in the Harry Potter series. Lots of great mystery there. So even though mystery isn't really my genre, it was J.K. Rowling, and I know she's good at mystery. So I have the whole Cormoran Strike series. That being said, I don't know that I really need them all, because again, I'm not super into mystery. So yeah, the one place where I'm a completist, I feel a little like I didn't really need to be a completist on this one. Anyways, moving on to my Peter Pan shelf. I'm gonna skip the rest of the mystery shelf because not a completist in any way on that shelf. I do have one Stephen King book, and I've read a few of his other books, but he's got so many books, there's definitely no way I'll ever be a completist there. Besides that, I've always been kind of meh towards a lot of his stuff that I have read. So as I said, moving on to the Peter Pan shelf. I have not read all of the original J.M. Barrie Peter Pan stories. I've read the original Peter Pan, of course, and Peter in Kensington Gardens, but I haven't read Peter and Wendy, or I think there's one called Whitebird or something like that. I haven't read any of those, but I do have a lot of Peter Pan books. I have got Tiger Lily, I've got the entire Starcatcher series, including the one that kind of came out apart from the rest of the series that was years later. And I've got the original 3, like, larger Disney fairy books, along with a small collection of the smaller Disney fairy books that focused on specific characters, although not all of them, of course, because there are a lot of those. And there are other Peter Pan books that I've read but don't own, like Joss Hook and one that had Neverland in the title. So yeah, not a Peter Pan completist, but do like me a good Peter Pan story. And then my next shelf is a little fantasy shelf. It only has Game of Thrones and the Inheritance Cycle on it, and I'm a completist on both of those. I have all of the 5 available Game of Thrones books. One might say George R.R. Martin is not a completist on Game of Thrones. And then I have all of the Inheritance Cycle, including the set of short stories that he came out with last year. But I did not love those short stories, and he's planning to come out with more, so I don't know if I'll buy the next ones or if I'll just get them in paperback. I don't know. Aragon is one where it's a really old childhood favorite that I have a lot of built-up loyalty to, so it's hard not to continue to buy more content from Allegasia, even if I know it might be something that I'm just pretty lukewarm towards. After that, we have kind of a random shelf, kind of some childhood books, a lot of fantasy, and featured prominently up front here is the Warrior series. And that series went on forever, so I'm not a completist on this one either. I do have the complete first series and the complete second series, but after that, I was done. I read more of them, but I do not want to own more of them. After that, I read the third series, and then I think I gave up partway through the fourth series, and I read some of the larger spin-offs that focused on specific characters, like Blue Star's Destiny and Firestar's Journey and all that. But yeah, this is a series that's still going, and I'm kind of done with it. On this shelf, I have Lonely Little City of Ember there, only the first book, because again, I only liked the first book. And I've also got the Lunar Chronicles on this shelf, which I own all of the original series, but I don't own any of the spin-offs like Fairest, etc. And then over on the next shelf, we have my adult novels shelf. And over there, I do have Marcus Zusak, which I believe I'm a completist on Marcus Zusak. I think he's only come up with 3 books, and I have all 3 of them. Let me know down below if my information is false. Yeah, I have The Book Thief, I Am the Messenger, and Bridge of Clay. Although if that shelf ever is in need of more space, Bridge of Clay will be the first to go. I did not really love it, so I might not always be a Marcus Zusak completist, especially if he comes out with more books, because I think after I Am the Messenger and Bridge of Clay, I might be done with buying his stuff unless it sounds really interesting. And then yeah, all the other books on that shelf are all by different authors, don't have multiples of any of them. But I would like more Frederick Bachman books. I really love A Man Called Uva, and I would like to own more books by him. And then down here at the very bottom, I have the entire Charlie Bone series. I'm a Charlie Bone completist. But I don't have any other books by Ginny Nimmo. And I have all 4 Twilight books, but I don't have any of the spin-offs. And I might get rid of Twilight. I might reread it at some point and then decide whether or not I'm keeping it. And then the very last shelf is a nonfiction shelf, which all books by all different authors, don't have multiples from anyone. So yeah, that was kind of a run through of all of my shelves and, you know, how much of a completist I am or am not very much, and how I feel about that. I would really like to know down below everyone else's kind of book completist tendencies. What tier do you fall on, and how do you feel about that? Do you feel guilty about not owning more of a certain author's books, or do you feel guilty about letting too many of an author's books take up space on your shelves? Hopefully this wasn't too long and rambling and random of a topic. I hope you enjoyed watching, and feel free to make your own Are You a Book Completist video and comment to your channel down below and I'll go watch it. Thanks for watching. Remember, words matter.